Hi students, in this session we will discuss the third chapter of civics, that is directive principles of state policy, and fifth chapter of history, that is Sangam Age. You need to study very little topic from these two chapter. Okay, now let's see what is directive principles of state policy. Directive principles of state policy are certain guidelines to be followed by the government while framing any programs and policies, or while framing any laws in any of their functions. What is that? They do everything for the welfare of the people. Okay, so any of their action, any of their programs or policies, or anything do in the country, means their ultimate aim should be welfare of the citizen. That they should keep always in their mind. So means what? They make different laws, and sometimes they change the law, sometimes they do some addition of laws with our constitution. So whenever they do such kind of things, they should keep always what? Welfare of the state in their mind. So for that they have to keep certain values, they have to follow certain values or guidelines which are mentioned in the constitution. These guidelines which are mentioned in the constitution are called directive principles of state policy. Then what are the difference between fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policy? In the second chapter we are studying about fundamental rights. Okay, so fundamental rights are included with the part third of the constitution. Directive principles of state policies are included with the part 4 of the constitution. Then fundamental rights, they are enforceable by the court. Why? Because you can approach the court. If your fundamental rights are violated, you can approach the court. But nobody can file a case against this fundamental rights of state policy against the government for not following this directive principles of state policy. Why? Because these are only the value points or guidelines to be followed by the government. Okay, why they should follow these guidelines? Because the ultimate aim of the government should be welfare of the citizen. Understood? So they should look society as a whole, and they have to work for the betterment and welfare of the society. Okay, but fundamental right means that is concentrating on particular individual and his basic freedom. So if any individual's fundamental rights are violated, you can approach court. But directive principles are these are the guidelines to be followed by the government, and these are the long term goals. Okay, development of any place. Once a government comes to the power, and within the period of 5 years, whatever they have promised, they may not be able to fulfill. They can claim that these are the long term goals. Within a long span of time only these things can be fulfilled. So accordingly we cannot approach the court complaining against them, but we can only assess them their work, how much they have done for fulfilling our wish. Accordingly we can choose the next government after 5 years. This is what happens. So understood what is directive principles of state policy. You will have to underline the what is that definition. Question may be asked. The definition you need to learn. What is directive principles of state policy? What is that? Directive principles are the guidelines. What is that? Guidelines to be followed by in the governance of the country, and it is included with part 4 of our constitution. Is that clear? Then this also you can mention the directive principles are the. So all these points you need to underline from this. Sometimes explanation of directive principles also can be asked. Is that clear? So from here in this page only this much you need to study. From the first page, this is the thing you need to study, and the next thing you have to study is that welfare state. And what is welfare state? Welfare state means in a country, if all the citizens are enjoying the maximum happiness, that means maximum happiness of maximum number of people which are living in its territory is called that welfare state. Can you say the example of one welfare state? We have studied about Ashoka's empire, isn't it? Mauryan empire. So Ashoka's period he established a welfare state. He brought about maximum happiness of his people. In a similar way, so actually the constitution says that the government should establish a welfare state doing maximum for the happiness of the people. So when we can say a state is a welfare state, once the maximum number of people, not only few section, maximum number of people become, they enjoy maximum happiness in their life, we can say that state has achieved the status of welfare state. This is what the term meant by welfare state. When a question comes welfare state, you need to underline all these important points. You have to go through all these and underline these points. Clear? Okay, go through the lesson and underline. I'm not underlining everything so clearly. Okay, so if it is of 4 marks and 5 marks question, you need to write detail, otherwise you need to write only small definition. Is that clear? Yes. And the next topic we need to discuss is that, let's see, yes, what are the difference between directive principles and fundamental rights? This also is asked in the question. Okay, these are the part of topic we need to study. Directive principles are what they are provided in part 4 of the constitution, I told you. Then this is in the parts 3rd. Then they are justiciable or enforceable by the court. That only you can approach the court. If you are directive principles are not justiciable. Why they are not justiciable? Because you cannot approach the court. And because these are only guidelines. Fundamental rights, these are justiciable. Why? You can approach court if your fundamental rights are violated. Then these are meant for the government to create a certain privileges to the citizen. Why guidelines? Means they follow the programs, policies, changes, making laws and all. Why? In order to bring about certain privileges, in order to take certain welfare measures to the citizen. And the next is that these are privileges in existence of citizens to enjoy. So these are the certain privileges for each individual to enjoy. This is then they are more direction to the state to attain certain set of objectives. It's so as a whole. So these are the guidelines to achieve welfare or privileges to the whole citizen as a whole. These are certain kind of restriction on the state. What restriction? Why restriction? Because state cannot take any arbitrary rule against the citizens and his fundamental rights. Understood? So then these are all the points. These aim to establish welfare state. Then these aim to establish political democracy. Why political democracy? Because persons look into the equality, or he should not be exploited. He should be given freedom. All these points comes under political democracy. So go through this chapter also. Understood? So okay, these are the things you have to study from civics 3rd chapter. What else you have to study? You have to study about what is that? First one we discussed that directive principles of state policy, then welfare state, then difference between directive principles and state policy and fundamental rights. Then in chapter 5 you need to study what is meant by the term Sangam age. So this much first page you have to study from here. What is Sangam age? You see children, you have studied about North Indian history. Means from the beginning Harappan civilization on northwestern side. Mauryan Empire you are studying about part of Bihar. Then all these. But what about the South Indian history? So everywhere you are studying about North Indian history, isn't it? But at the same time, then even Mauryan Empire reached only up to Karnataka, then Kalinga. Then what about the part of Kerala, Andhra and all these region? So there mainly existed Chera Chola kingdom. Okay, Chera Chola Pandya kingdom. So their history was completely different. But there was no much sources. People were not so interested in knowing the South Indian history. So there are no much sources available to know the South Indian history. But even then nowadays historians are showing keen interest to study about South India. So we are getting some of the important sources to reveal the history of South India. They are known as Sangam literature. The important source of ancient South India is that what? Sangam literature. Okay. Then what is Sangam literature? Okay, keep in mind what is the term here? Sangam literature. What is Sangam literature? This is an important source in which we help us to know the history of South India. Children, you know, many years ago, there, Mathurei. You must have heard about the place called Mathurei. This is the different from the Mathura which is in Delhi. Nearby Agra, there is one Mathura that is a birthplace of Krishna. And this Mathura is in Chennai. Okay, this there ancient period, a group, there was a kingdom, Pandya kingdom. This Pandya rulers, they were very interested in literary works. In those days, there were some scholars who wrote poetry, prose, and all many things like those things were related to day-to-day life and their war, many things like. So means they were so these scholars were called once in a year to their capital, which was their capital Madurai, Pandya rulers' capital Madurai, and there they held a meeting. So the Sangam means the term, meaning of the term Sangam means meeting. So their meetings were held in Madurai, and in that meeting they presented their poetry works, their literary works like poem, prose, or poetry, whatever they have presented it in before the kings, and these literary works were collected and kept. So like that, number of Sangams were held. So this meeting of scholars are known as Sangam. Sangam means what? Meeting or gathering of scholars. Understood? So in those gatherings, all the important literary works were collected and kept, and these literary works are preserved. And nowadays, but all these literary works are not existing now. Only few literary works are existing. So historians are making use these literary works for revealing the history of South India. So that is what. So these literary works are known as Sangam literature. The period in which the revealed from by learning Sangam literature is known as Sangam age. So you understood, Sangam age means history of ancient South India. Okay, the Sangam age means what? History of ancient South India. And how do we reveal the history of ancient South India? By going through the Sangam literature. So many of the historians, they are studying this Sangam literature and they are trying to reveal the history of South India. So this is what about Sangam age. Okay, now you have to underline, you have to go and read and underline that. What is that? Sangam age is considered as the landmark in the history of South India. Then the word Sangam is the Tamil form of the Sanskrit Sangha, which means association. Association means meeting. Thus, the Sangam age refers to the period when bulk of Tamil literature was composed by a body of Tamil scholars, poets in 3 successive literary gatherings called Sangam. So, the historians say 3 continuous literary gathering of these scholars were held. So that is called Tamil literature. Why the term Tamil literature is used? Because ancient South India is completely, it is known as Tamilagam. Tamilagam means like Tamil language was only spoken. It's considered as all these Chera, Chola, Pandya rulers, all these territories were under these rulers like. So it is considered as Tamilagam. Also they are known as Tamil scholars. Their language was, spoken language was Tamil. Understood. So thus the Sangam age refers to the period when bulk of Tamil literature was composed by a body of Tamil scholars and the poets in 3 successive literary gatherings called Sangam. So hence Sangam meaning confluence refers to the gathering of poets and bards. Bards means what? People who moved from place to place singing songs and all, no? They are considered as bards. Sometimes kings were very much interested in hearing this bards singing also, because why? They had a lot of knowledge which preserved from generation to generation. Those songs also sang. So these songs revealed so many things. They also even carry a lot of philosophical ideas, values, points, etc. Is that clear for you? These are all about Sangam literature. Then you have to study about this point, sources. This is one. Tirukkural you have to study about. Tirukkural, no, just like an epic. You learned Ramayana and Mahabharata, isn't it? It is a Tamil epic, we can say, Tirukkural. Who is the author of Tirukkural? Question may be asked. Who is the author of Tirukkural? Tiruvalluvar. Here it is there in the textbook. If you see, you can find. The author of Tirukkural is in the picture, you can see. Tiruvalluvar is the author of Tirukkural. Then what is the content of Tirukkural? Tirukkural, because in Tamil, they have written number of works. So they say 18 minor work. 18 minor work means out of this Sangam literature, which is presented by different scholars, and 18 minor works were included with this Tirukural. He has learned about 18 minor work and he has brought about the essence of those 18. There are number of works were there. Some 18 minor works which were so important, like Tirukural has brought about the essence of those 18 minor books into his Tirukural. And also say scholars says that it is the composition of three important teaching. In Tirukural, all throughout you can see the teaching of three books. Which are the three books? Dharma Shastra. Dharma Shastra belongs to Vedic period. I have explained in one of my video, like Vedic age when Dharma Shastra, who has written Manu. Okay, it is a law book of Hindus like. Then Artha Shastra, who has written Artha Shastra? Kautilya. Then Kama Sutra. These are the Dharma Shastra means all about the law, and Artha Shastra also polity, and Kama Sutra is about worldly life, pleasure. Okay, so the Tirukural was the composition of three important books like. Then these were written in the form of proverbs. Okay, Tirukural, proverbs, no, only two short sentences may be there. So you can elaborate those proverbs, means it has got lot of inner meaning. It means it is a matter of discussion, long discussion, or you can even write a big essays on that particular topic. Like proverbs means it contains lot of philosophical value, and they are related to different aspects of life and religion. Understood? So understood what is Tirukural, you have to study all these things. Understood? Underline and study. And the next page, what is there? Let's see the next page. Next page comes, what is that? Tirukural, you see, this also you have to study. Tirukural mentions about what? See, here you see, Aram. It has got three important sections. Tirukural has got three sections. Which are the three sections of Tirukural? Aram, that is righteousness, that means values. Okay, Porul means wealth, and then Inbam means calm, pleasure. So it says about value of a person's life. So being a human, all should have certain value in their life, spiritual life. Everything comes under this righteousness, Aram, that Atma, isn't it? One should be pure from the heart. Otherwise there is no meaning of this life, isn't it? He can earn many things, but his actions are a great matter. So his actions mainly determined by his mind, what kind of values he has got. So righteousness, Aram, then wealth, and then Inbam or Kamam, that means pleasure, worldly life. Understood? So while Inbam, so these things also you have to study. Okay, then the next is that megaliths. These are the two important sources when we study about Sangam age. Tirukural, there are a number of sources of Sangam age, but we are learning only about two sources. Tirukural is there written by Tiruvalluvar, so you understood what is the content of Tirukural. The next is megalith, is an archaeological source. Okay, these are the burial sites. In the picture you can see, in the textbook, burial sites are shown there. Some stone slabs are erected for the memory of dead people of South India. If some heroes are died in the war, or some other great personality, so for their memory they had erected this stone slabs, and these stone slabs are called memorial stones. So they are known as megaliths. You understood what a megalith? A blocks like structure was erected with the stone slabs resting on each other without the support of mortar. That means no pillar like in between. Sometimes there was an opening cut into the one side. You can see what is that opening cut. You see that picture. You see, you can see here. You see, this is what memorial stone. You can see my cursor moving around this picture. Okay, did you see? One side is open. Understood? So means mortal remains are there, body is there inside, remains of body, and they have constructed this memorial stone, erecting the stones. These kind of structures which are found from different sides of South India, revealing the history of Sangam age or ancient South Indian period, is known as megaliths. Okay, children, this much only you have to study, children. Then go through the exercise part and answer the question which are covering only this topic. Okay, so prepare well for the examination.